Hello everyone, this is Jim Delapine, and I'm going to do a quick demo here on the proper way to create a shadow. I noticed that a number of you are creating shadows using a layer style drop shadow, and for the most part, it's not the correct way to do it. So I wanted to show you the correct way. And the only real proper way to do this is to actually paint the shadow. I'm going to do this in several ways, okay? So I've created, I'm using this as a demo here. I've got the wicker duck here on a separate layer. And we're going to create a shadow for this onto the stone surface of the ground, okay? So I'm going to control click on the wicker duck thumbnail to create a selection. I'm going to select my shadow layer, that new layer I created underneath, and I'm going to fill that with black. So my foreground color is black, so I'm hitting Alt Delete, and that fills that selection with black. Okay? I'm now going to free transform it, so I'm hitting Control T. If you're in the Mac, it's Command T. And I'm going to simply just stretch this and manipulate it and kind of trying to create what I think the shadow would look like with this light source. Okay, so I'm going to hit enter. It's really not all that critical. As a matter of fact, I'm going to deselect and just fudge it a little bit. A little bit of a paintbrush and just paint it a little bit more here and just extend it down here a little bit. Okay. All right, so now what I'm going to do is, now remember, this is filled with black. And I'm doing how shadows are traditionally created by students, where they fill a selection with black and then lower the opacity of that layer. All right, that's not the correct way to do it. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and I will blur that out to what I think a shadow would look like. So I'll just choose that for now. Okay, so we've got a blurred shadow effect that will lower the opacity to whatever we think it should be. All right, so 55, 56. Okay. All right, so here we have a shadow. So, all right, that can work. I mean, keep in mind that any shadow you can reposition. You have control since you're on your own layer here. So what I'm now going to do is duplicate that image. All right, so I'll go to Image, Duplicate, and I'll just make a copy of it. So it's a duplicate file next to it. All right, so I'm going to fill this new shadow layer here, our shadow layer. I'm going to fill all those pixels with a medium gray. All right, so let me just click on my foreground color to access the color picker, and I'm going to click and drag and select a dark gray, and I'll hit OK. Now I'm going to fill all of the opaque pixels on that layer, and I'm going to bring the opacity up to 100%. I'm going to fill all those pixels with this gray. All right, so as long as I check the lock transparent part, I'm going to fill this entire layer with this new gray, and it will affect only these new pixels. So I'm going to Alt Delete and OK. So we have that gray, and now what I'm going to do is change the blending mode, and this is the key here. Any shadow that's created should be in a blending mode called Multiply. What we have here is a true shadow. It will look very similar, but this is how to create a true shadow. I mean, if you look at the description of Multiply, it basically will make the resulting color darker. It will darken the pixels in the underlying layers. And the effect is similar to drawing on a page or an image with multiple magic markers. Okay, so if I duplicate this layer, for example, by hitting Control J, it will darken. All right, so that's an analogy there that I like to use. All right, so if we look at these images side by side, you'll see that they look pretty much the same. So let me go to Window, Arrange. Okay, let me hide my panels here. All right, so let's zoom in so that we're all, let's see, here we have both shadows. Okay, the copy was done using the multiply mode with gray. All right, and in addition to that, that shadow is at 100% opacity. Yes, you can lower the opacity of that. to soften it even more. And it's kind of hard to tell, and it will vary from image to image, but what we have here is a true shadow. What you have here is black with a lowering of the transparency. Now, to prove this to you, the default for shadows in Photoshop will be, the default blend mode will be multiply. So if I go to double click on the layer here to access the layer styles dialog box and select drop shadow and look at the settings for that, you'll see that the default is multiply. So it's for a reason. All right. It's not as apparent in this file as it would be in others, but just keep that in mind. That is how to create a shadow. All right. Do not use the layer styles dialog box to create shadows. You have to create your own because light sources are different all the time, and the layer styles drop shadow is too generic. All right. So I hope that was helpful, and if you guys have any questions, you know where to find me.